This is Math 2, 11.3 homework questions. That's Math 2, Unit 11, Lesson 3 homework questions. This worksheet is online, or you've picked it up from Clovis West. Okay, again, if you picked it up from Clovis West, it may look a little different. That is fine. They're still the same type of problems. You just may have a few extra. Okay. I'm going to go through and do these. You should have already watched the notes for this first before doing this worksheet. Okay, in the notes we talked about the square root of -1 is I. Okay, so that means the square root of -4, since 4 is a perfect square root, it's 2. The negative comes out as an I. Your final answer is 2I. Not plus or minus 2I, just 2I. Why no plus or minus? Because the square root's already written for you. You do plus or minus when you're solving an equation and you square root both sides. You yourself, you write square root of both sides on each side because you're solving. That's when you do your plus or minus. Okay, so it's just 2I. Next one, -12. The I is going to come out, but 12 is not a perfect square, so I'm going to break it down. 4 and 3, 2 and 2. So I have 2, 2, and 3, and the 2 is coming out. But with the 2, the negative is going to come out as an I. So 2I, and then inside is staying the 3. 2I root 3. Okay, 7 is a prime number. There's no pairs that come out, so the only thing that comes out is the I. So it's I root 7. I root 7. And 7 has no pairs, so it just stays in. All right, 27 is also not a perfect squared, but it does have pairs, so we have 3 and 9, 3 and 3. So I have 3, 3, and 3. One set's coming out with the I because it's a negative. 3I root, that 3 stays in. 3I root 3 is your answer. And something like this, perfect squared, 8I. There's no radical left, so 8I is your answer. All right, number 10. Find the sum or difference. We've talked about this before. There's a plus sign. Because there's a plus sign, this is not, I repeat, it is not double distribution. With the plus sign, you just look to see if there's anything to distribute. Since there's not, you drop the parentheses. 7 plus 4I plus 3 minus 5I, and then you combine like terms, and that's it. 7 plus 3 is 10. 4I and -5I is -1I, so 10 minus I is your final answer. Okay, number 11. Same thing, it is not a double distribution, but this one does have a negative to distribute. So I'm going to distribute the negative and then drop the parentheses. 4 minus 2I minus 8 plus 7I. Plus 7I because I distributed the negative. Like terms. 4 and -8 is -4. -2I and positive 7I is positive 5I, and that's it. These are not like terms, by the way. This is not, they're not like terms. It's a complex number. 10 minus I, -4 plus 5I, that's it, you're done. I'm not going to work 13 all the way through, but I do want to talk about it. There is something to distribute. There's a -2, and here there's a +2. So after you distribute that +2 and that -2, you drop the parentheses and combine like terms. So this one would look like this. 24 minus 13I, and then you multiply, you get -34 minus 16I. And then combine like terms. And that part you can finish on your own. Okay, I'm going to jump down to the bottom. Multiply 12I on number 15, 12I times 4I. You multiply the 12 and the 4, you get 48. You know that x times x is x squared. Same thing, I times I is I squared. And in the notes, we talked about I squared equaling -1. Look at the notes before this, and it'll explain why I squared equals -1. So then I have 48 times -1, which is -48 as my final answer. Okay, to do these, you'll need to know the little chant that we had in notes. Again, you should have watched those first. We have I to the first power, I to the second, I to the third, and I to the fourth. and what each one equals. Your answers should have an I or no I, never an I squared or higher. It's okay to have no I or just an I, but never an I squared or higher. Okay, I to the first is I squared is -1, I to the third is -I, and I to the fourth is 1. And we talked about chanting, I won, you're celebrating, you just won your game, I won, and negatives in the middle. I won, negative signs sandwiched in the middle. Positives on the outside. Okay, so let's do this one. 2 times 5 is 10, 10 times 8 is 80. I times I times I, add your exponents, is I cubed. Remember, no I squared or higher in your final answer, so I cubed we're going to change to -I. So negative 80I is my final answer. And this is explained in the notes on where these came from. It wasn't just something that was made up. Okay, so negative 80I. Next one, 2 times 5 times 8 times 10. Multiply it all together in any form and order you want. You get 800. I to the 1, 2, 3, 4. I to the fourth. Remember, your answers can have I, -1, -I, +1 multiplied to numbers, but it should never have an I squared, or I cubed, or I fourth, or anything higher. So we're going to change the I to the fourth to 1. So 800 times 1 is simply 800. Okay, let's try some from the back of the worksheet. Okay, I am going to do 21. Now look at 21 and how it's different from the previous page. Can you see that 21 has no plus or minus in between? So this one is double distribution. So I'm going to do 2 to both of them. Let's work that out now. That gives me 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3i is positive 6i, just like our double distribution that we've done in the past. And then we have negative 3i times 2 is negative 6i, and negative 3 times positive 3 is negative 9, and then I squared. Okay, and then we combine like terms. I have like terms in the middle, so I have 4 plus 6i, negative 6i, they do undo each other, they're gone, minus 9i squared. Now remember what I said earlier, you never leave an I squared or higher in your problem. I squared is -1, so I have not 4 minus 9 times -1. 4, -9 and -1 become plus, so plus 9. So 4 plus 9 is 13 is my final answer. Okay, I want to do 23, and then I'll come back and do 22, and I'm not going to do 24. Okay, 23, again, double distribution. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4i is positive 8i. And then I have negative 9i times 3 is negative 27i. And negative 9i times 4 is negative 36i squared, because I times I is I squared. So I have 6 plus 8i minus 27i minus 36i squared. Okay, earlier these two canceled out because they were opposites. These are nowhere near opposites, so we're going to add them together. 6, and then 8i and negative 27i is negative 19i. And then what's going to happen here with this negative 36i squared, and I did talk about this in notes. Remember, I squared is -1, so negative 36 times a -1 would give me a plus 36. So this minus 36i squared becomes just plus 36 with no I involved, because I squared is -1. -1 times the negative 36 is a positive 36. And I have like terms again. 6 and 36 is 42, minus 19i is my final answer. Okay, jumping back and doing number 22. Remember, we've talked about this quite a few times. You do not distribute the negative when it's a binomial or trinomial. Only when it's a monomial do you distribute the exponents. When it's anything larger than a monomial, you have to write it twice and double distribution. 4 plus 8i times 4 plus 8i, and we do our double distribution. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 32i, and then I distribute the 8i times 4 is another positive 32i, plus 64i squared. Okay, previously these two canceled each other out because they were opposites. That doesn't happen here because they are not. They look kind of like opposites, but they're not. They're exactly the same. Positive 32i and positive 32i. So 16 is going to stay. 32i plus 32i is positive 64i. Okay, here we go again. I have a positive 64, and I squared is negative 1, so this becomes a minus 64. Earlier, the minus 36i squared became positive 36. The negative 9i squared became positive 9. Now the positive 64i squared is becoming negative 64 because I squared is negative 1. Add your like terms. 16 and negative 64 is negative 48 plus 64i. And that there is your final answer. Okay, that is it for these homework questions.